Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray and I teach watercolor, and today we are doing our ink and wash building project. This project is inspired by urban sketching, which is this community that goes and paints and draws things on site. So it's not technically urban sketching because we're doing it here in the studio, but I'm going to show you how you can go about doing it so you guys can go out there and paint. Okay?
Nice.
We have Keenan here working the cameras.
On the streets.
And we have, we're gonna do this project in 7 steps. So our very first step, we're gonna do the outline, and you can see here that the outline is actually the photograph, which we got from Unsplash Photographers, Red F. Thank you so much for sharing your work.
Thanks, Red F.
Thank you so much. And so we'll do that outline together so you can see what I look for when I am sketching buildings. Step 2 is we are going to ink it using our mono twin pen. Step 3, we are going to start putting in washes. So we're going to do our sky and then our kind of foliage and wall. 4th step, we'll start painting in our building. 5th step is we are going to ink the foliage and the brick. Our 6th step is we'll go in and put in some shadows on our building, and then the 7th step is just some gold finishing details.
Love those.
Me too. So we have 3 colors for this. Hold on. Okay.
Found it.
Found it. So we have 3 colors for this project. Our very first color is rose red. Our second color is tangerine. And our third color is space blue. I also have our mono twin Tombow pen. It has a thick side and a thin side. We will be utilizing both of those. And I also have our bonus item. Well, I guess we have 2 bonus items. We have a pen and we have our acrylic gold ink, which we'll be doing details. And we have 2 brushes that we're using, around 6 and around 12, but please use whatever brushes you have at home. Okay, I taped my paper off and I put my photograph on top of my paper. Now you can see it's smaller than my paper. That's okay. That is why they make watercolor paper in 9x12, so you can tape it off and have borders and clean edges. Very rarely, unless you're painting on canvas, most of the time you don't go to the edge. Canvas, you can go to the edge, but on papers, usually you want to always have a border. Why? I don't know.
Rules.
Rules. Okay. Let's actually do our oath before we do the outline, since the outline is part of the project. So, if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Thank you very much. Okay. I have a pencil or a pen, and sometimes we get overwhelmed with what we're seeing. Like this photograph, you're looking at this and you're like, I have to trace all of that. You do not. You can simplify it just by doing like consistent basic lines for the structure, and that's really all you need to put in. So that's why I chose to do a photograph instead of an outline, because I want you to practice what it means to edit out what you see. So then when you do go out and let's say you have a sketchbook or you want to start doing painting buildings or something like that, you won't get overwhelmed with detail. You're going to be able to break it down into basic shapes and forms, so then you can recreate it. Okay?
Cool.
Great. So I have my graphite paper, I have my building, and I have a pencil. So what I have to decide is what lines I want to follow and then make sure that I'm consistent. So if you look at a roof line, we have a bunch of different lines. We have this one, we have this one, we have this one, we have this one, right? There's like 4 different lines there.
Yeah.
You don't have to put all 4 in. If you choose one, that's enough. But make sure that you stay with that one on all of the different sections. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So I like to start by just putting in the top. And then I always like to check to make sure it's good. So I'm just going to go along the top. And it's hard because our brain is just like, now this one, now this one. So tell your brain to settle down. I'm going to stick to right underneath the gray roof on both of these. Okay? And then you kind of just lift up. See how that looks?
Nice.
Okay. And if you want to do these little statues as well, you can. On the reference, I kind of just did little sticky pokey outies. So you, that's the technical term.
It is. It's in engineer books.
That's right. So you can decide, honestly, you can decide how much detail you want in here. So I did the interior building, and now I'm going to do this kind of like fenced portion. This is the only one that has something like wonky during the thing. So, and then I liked the little arched windows, so I'm going to put those in there. Now, there might be people in the way. That's okay. Just try and continue the line as if those people weren't there.
Yeah, ignore them.
So on my next one, I did this top edge roof, and then I went underneath the gray portion of the roof, so I'm going to continue that same. You just want to make sure there's continuity in what you trace. So then your measurements are similar. And then I'm going to do this line as well. You see this big chunk right here? I'm going to put that in. Go down to the next portion.
The big chunks made me think of this question. How do you prefer eating brownies? Do you like bigger chunks of brownie or like a bite-sized thing? Fresh homemade brownies.
I like a big chunk if it's a corner, because then I get the chewy middle and then a crusty edge.
I agree, actually. That's a good point.
Okay. And then we have these guys up here. So again, you decide how much detail. I'm going to go around like that cream border. And then at the top, I'm just putting in this shape. Okay. And then I just like to check it every so often. And sometimes, like, if we get lost, how do I say this? That's why it's good to like tell yourself, I'm going with the white chunky portion and the gray roof line. That's what I'm focusing on. And then what you do is you put those in, and then you look at your outline after you traced it and you say, are there sections missing, right? Because it's possible that you didn't get everything. If there are no sections missing, then you can say, okay, that's enough, I'm done. Or you can decide then from there, what is the next thing? Oh, I kind of liked this detail in between these two roof lines, or I like that there are windows. So let's put in some windows. I kind of liked that there were these.
Those lines?
Yeah, these kind of like the things holding the roof out.
Yes.
Okay. And then I put in that creamy chunk. If I knew parts of a building, this might be easier to explain to you, but I don't, so.
No need.
No need. So I'm just gonna say things like creamy chunky parts.
Chunky and...
Gray roof line.
Roof line sounds official.
That seems right.
Yeah.
That seems like the right word.
That does seem right.
Okay. Now, a lot of this the tree will cover. I'm just going to put it in there just in case. Let's put in some windows. Now, this top section, I'm going to put this edge in here. Okay, and then this fence. Again, all up to you how much you want to include. And you just do your best. Like if it's not perfect, that's okay. Okay, where do I have chunks? This, I didn't put in the edge of the roof.
Are you going to do stuff inside the triangles?
Inside here? Yeah, let's do that. Good call out. So I'm just going to do like the beams.
Are you an architect?
I am actually. This isn't even my job. I do this for fun. Okay.
The reason we're doing this building is because she designed it.
That's right.
Now she's painting it. It's not conceited. It's accomplishment.
That's right. Okay, I didn't do the edge of this. So again, I'm kind of just looking through. See how this chunk is missing? That's like the part of the roof that's coming out. So I need to put that in there. Okay, what are we missing over here? Okay. And it's super, again, it's super easy to get lost. And when we get lost, we get frustrated. The same way like when we did our continuous contour line drawing in the first project, when we don't know where we're at and we don't know what the next step is, it's so easy to just be like, forget this. And I'm asking you that the biggest thing with this project is to just keep going. If you're lost, fake it, make it up. Throw a color down, put a line there. It doesn't actually matter. What we're trying to learn here is being okay with being uncomfortable, because that's when we can just continue on, and then it just like comes naturally. You will train your eye to be able to pick up just some of the things. You will train your eye to pick up detail when you want to, but we gotta be okay with that discomfort to allow ourselves to practice that skill. Yes.
When I was learning piano,
yeah.
I wasn't allowed to learn a new song until I could play the first song I learned 3 times. And it didn't even have to be perfect. I just had to play it all the way through 3 times.
Oh.
But it was because I got frustrated on the first time. I don't learn things immediately. I'm not very fast. So my teacher recognized that and she said, you gotta learn it 3 times. You gotta play it 3 times. And by the 3rd time, every single time, I could play it almost no problems.
Oh, nice. So then just her saying just do it 3 times was enough for you to be like...
So with outlines like this, just do it 3 times.
Yeah.
You get frustrated, turn the page over.
3 times.
3 times. Just do it again.
Okay, so I feel pretty good about where my building is at. I'm sure... Oh, missing a line. I'm sure there are lines that I'm missing that I'm just going to make up as I get into painting. That's okay. And then now I'm just going to put in my tree foliage. So basically I'm roughly following the line of these trees. And then if there's like strong branches, like I'm not talking about teeny itty bitty ones, but like the big trunks that you can clearly see, try and put those in. It's like the structure for our trees, right? And if you forget, eyeball it in later. We got a wall here. Okay. Okay, that feels pretty good. Now we get to go to the point of painting.
Yes.
And we're just gonna pray that it turns out good. Okay, here we go. Now, if you were to do like actual urban sketching, then you would essentially sketch that in your sketchbook without an outline. You would be looking at the building, kind of just following the angles and the shapes. Some tools that you can use to help you are actually your pencil itself. Looking at the angles of buildings, it's actually tricky. Our eyes like to play tricks on us about what's coming towards us or what's moving away. The easiest thing to do is to look at the edge of, let's say, a doorway. I'm looking at the doorway and then I hold my pencil to line up with the edge of the top of the door frame, and now I understand the angle. So you just kind of like hold it up, match it, and then you can just keep your hand there and put it down to your paper.
Wow.
And it's just like, there's the angle.
And your angle is way different from my angle.
Right. So depending on where you're sitting and looking at the building, your perspective is going to change, which is going to change your angles and your lines. And it's really easy to get confused and lost. So true way, just check the angle with your pencil, because this is a straight object. Nice. If you have a wavy pencil, that won't work. Like a rubber pencil.
Did you have a rubber pencil?
Luna has rubber pencils. She loves them. Yeah, you can change them into shapes.
I've never seen that.
Oh, I'll have her bring you one.
Okay.
Okay. Step 1, we're gonna put in our sky first. Now remember, we're keeping this very loose, very sketchy, very kind of illustrative. So go for as realistic as you want, but I'm gonna keep things pretty basic. I'm gonna take this space blue, add some water to it to tone it down. Using my round 12, I'm gonna paint in my sky. Nope, we gotta ink it first, my bad. Okay, all that tracing we just did, we're gonna use our pen now. So for the thick lines, I'm gonna use my thick marker edge. There's also a thin one. So if you don't like how thick these lines are on like the edges here, you see how thin these ones are? Mm-hmm. If you like that thin look better, then just use the thinner point of the pen. I liked having both. So I'm gonna do the thicker and then I'm gonna use the thin lines for details. So yeah, you just kind of go for it. And as you guys know, it's actually really hard to follow an edge, even with an outline. So do your best.
Does it help to kind of, I know you say let go a lot, but does it help to let go and just go speedy?
Sometimes. Should I try that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now on this like great part of the fence, I'm not gonna do that in the thick. I'm gonna save that for the thin. So you can see that even though I'm following an outline, you know, my lines are not straight. They are getting wonky. That is okay. That's the beauty of this.
One time I was in a building in Kansas City. I don't remember what it was. I was just going from building to building asking if I could go to their highest floor. Mm-hmm. And while I was there, I had to go to the bathroom. And while I was in the bathroom, I saw a notebook in the bathroom. Not knowing that it was belonging to someone else in the bathroom, I decided to look through it.
Okay.
Amazing sketches.
Really?
Shockingly. It blew my mind. And I was like, these are amazing. Well, the gentleman was upset.
He was?
Oh yeah, he was very upset.
He's like, what are you doing in my sketchbook?
I was like, why are you, that's mine. I was like, I had no idea.
You're like, you're incredibly talented.
Yeah, I was like, this is beautiful.
Like, have you heard of Let's Make Art?
No, this was you.
I know.
Okay.
That's awesome.
I'm not saying I'm more responsible now, but I haven't done that since.
That is so funny.
I embarrassed the buddy I was with severely.
I mean, it's so funny because like a sketchbook is actually a very like personal thing, you know? So, and just like, what if it was his like private journal?
Well, it also might have been that. But it was in the bathroom on a strange, like it wasn't next to the sink or anything. It was just on the spare table they had in there. Okay. I thought it was a guest sign-in book. My first thought, like, oh, people are signing this? This is weird.
They're like, please let us know how your experience was.
Give us reviews. Should we have mints? Check yes, check no.
Should we have mints? Like what?
Yeah, oh sorry, mints, yeah.
Okay, now a lot of this my tree is gonna cover, so I'm kind of just like putting in a little bit, and then if I need to put in more after, I can. And already I'm looking at this and I'm like, Sarah, I know I'm gonna get lost, but that's okay. We're doing this like uncomfortable thing together, you know?
Totally.
Okay. And then you can do this now. We'll do more later, but I switched to my thinner side. So then like some of this windows, this kind of like grates this fence. And start putting that in now, or you can do it later. I'm gonna do both. I'll probably go in and out. And then like, no, we'll save that for later. Okay, that feels pretty good.
Pretty cool.
Now I'm gonna grab my 12. I'm moving on to step 3. and I'm going to do my sky wash. So I'm just gonna do big swoops at the top, and then as I work my way down, the swoops are gonna get thinner and a little bit closer together, like how we do our skies. So just kind of boop, boop, boop. So nice big swoops at the top. Now that I'm about in the middle, they're gonna get thinner. And this is a barely there color, okay?
Real barely there.
Yeah, this is like you're just giving the hint of a sky. The biggest thing, you just wanna make sure that your brush strokes along the edge aren't all the same. So sometimes I'll just go along with a wet brush and kind of just like blend some of it out. But, oh, I got some purple.
Oh.
Whenever that happens, you just immediately put water on it, grab a clean paper towel, and lift. And it's like gone.
Nice.
I'm gonna do some darker blue on top of that. There we go. Okay, that's our sky. I just went over my building because we'll be painting more of that later. And now I'm gonna do some foliage. So I'm gonna do some of my trees and some of that brick building. So I'm gonna mix green, space blue and tangerine together makes a really gorgeous desaturated green. And I like to have a bunch of different greens to pull from. And then I'm gonna do a more yellow green, like that. But again, all of these are they're not vibrant. So if you're looking for a vibrant green, then you're gonna wanna pull a green from a different color. And then I'm just gonna take this 12 and using the side of my 12, I'm gonna drop in the green. And then I also like to drop in the like darker values and just kind of let it diffuse. So think about how the tops of areas, that's gonna be our lighter value because the light is hitting it. And then kind of underneath the tops of the trees, that's where it's shadowed. So if this is like the light is hitting up here, then down here, it's gonna be shadowed. Mm. And then I kind of just let this, my outline didn't go all the way, so you can just kind of let it fade off. But we want different values in here. We want a little bit of a different color. Sometimes I like to drop in like a little bit of orange, because look how pretty.
So pretty.
So allow there to be some different colors. And allow these to just kind of move and do their own thing. We're not trying to control everything here. It's very loose. We're gonna do the same thing on the opposite side. If you want to like lift your brush up so there's some like white spaces, go for it. Put some shadow in underneath that tree or underneath those leaves. I really love this kind of like orange green that we get. I think it's pretty.
I love how contrasty the building to kind of the dreamlike trees are.
Yeah. Okay, now we have this wall. I'm gonna take some of this tangerine and maybe grab a tiny bit of rose red for some of it. So it's kind of like this pink, creamy tan color, okay? And I'm just gonna put it in now. And is that gonna bleed into my green? Yes, it is. Is that okay? Yes, it is. If it's bleeding too much, you're welcome to like lift. But we will use our pen as a way to kind of shape and form these areas so it does not need to be like perfect, right? Because we'll use our pen to shape it. And I just did a little bit of green above that, over that pink wash because I felt like that pink was too bright. There we go. Let it go into the trees. Okay. Now we're gonna let that dry. While that's drying, we're gonna move on to our building and start putting in our building washes. So if you wanna move to your round 6, feel free to. I dropped mine. Okay, and now we're gonna think about section it. Like we have roof, we have building, and we have underneath the roof. So let's do our roof first. I'm gonna just mix like a brown tan color, but you can use whatever color you want. So I'm gonna take rose red, space blue, tangerine, a little bit more space blue. Now I have this like muddy gray color. No, muddy brown color, sorry.
Muddy brown.
Muddy brown. Okay. And using that color, I'm gonna just do my roof. And remember, it does not have to go, this is not a coloring book. We are not trying to go perfectly within
the lines?
The lines.
That's the beauty of the sketch world.
That's right. And then it's helpful, this is why it's nice painting in real life, because you can be checking at the reference at the same time. If you want to keep your photograph handy, so you can be checking just general colors and shapes, you can. Allow there to be some different textures too. It's okay if you get a little bit of dry brush in there. And then I want like an orangey gold color for the building. So I have tangerine. My tangerine mixed with a couple other colors that it kind of like went to like a warm cream color. You see that? It's like a light brown. Yeah. I like that color, so I'm just gonna stick with it.
Makes me think of those Werther-like candies.
Yeah.
Or Werther's.
Werther's Originals?
Yes.
Yes. And then again, we're trying to, oh, I forgot some of the roof part on this side. Okay. And then I just love it because as we add color to this, it's just gonna start to come to life, which is so fun. But again, allow yourself to be messy and imperfect.
I feel like it already is coming to life.
Yeah. Again, this is your painting. You can decide how detailed you want to be. I have given you all of the information to go as deep into this as you want to. My hope is to try and keep it pretty basic so you don't get lost, but know that you have the right to change it. Okay, so I did the building sections. Now I have this section right here. These kind of like top of the roof, chunk, creamy parts. You can do the same color or a different color. I'm gonna add a little bit of rose red to mine just to differentiate the color a little bit. And you'll notice that I'm not trying to match these colors here. I decided to just use my own colors. Now, you have that right to do that, or if you want to practice, you know, what does it mean to try and match colors that you see? That's a great practice as well. Now here, I have this like white part, right? Where I have to decide, what do I want to make this? I don't want to leave it just white. I think I'm going to have it be just the building continued. And so I'm going to do this kind of building color here. Okay. Then we have to do parts of our windows. And again, what colors do we want to use for this? Do we want the same? Do we want different? Sometimes just putting just a swoop of color addresses the area without it having to be too much. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're gonna let that dry for a second.
That looks cool.
Isn't it fun?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna let that dry. We still wanna put in our shadows because sometimes just putting in a little shadow on something is enough to just be like pop. So, but we need to let that dry. And what we're going to do is we are going to add foliage on our trees and our brick. But I kind of wanna show you how I like to do that. I'm gonna put this here. Can they still see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you have a pen or a pencil handy, this is how I was taught to warm up my wrist for movements when I would go into sketching.
Oh wow, just get that wrist warmed up.
So what you're trying to do is do circular and straight movements. So you'll see that I'm doing circles and then go to straight. Circles, straight. Circles, straight. Because you want to have both. Circles, straight. Notice if you're, like I've noticed that I'm doing a lot of this, try and break that. Okay, and you're like, this is literally scribbling. Yes, it is. This is warm up. Okay, now you've done some scribbling. Think about the edge of a tree. And I want you to practice using that same scribbling technique, but along the line of a tree. Okay?
Boom.
So
Yes.
we're gonna like follow the shape of our trees by doing that kind of squiggle, scribble edge. All right? Now when we get to the brick part, we can do that same thing, right? So you can start with lines and then put them in. The biggest thing is these are have geometric straight lines through it, right? So as long as you have these kind of gestural thick lines, you can read that as a brick wall. So you see the difference between these two? This is reading as organic.
Yeah.
This is reading as a strong structure. But really all you're changing, it's the same movement, but this has just a strong, clean edge, and this doesn't. You see?
Weird.
Yeah. And when you're looking at this by itself, you're like, what the? But then when you put it together with like a loose wash, you're like, oh, trees and a wall. Oh, okay. Because that's not reading this right now. That is the beauty of line work, is it can help us form things by just putting in some funky scribbly lines. And then you will be able to see that is a brick wall, that is a tree. Okay?
Sweet.
So do that till your heart's content, but sometimes it's fun just to go for it. You want to make sure that your painting is dry, and then follow the overall shape. If you want to look at your reference photo, you can. Okay? And then we can decide where do we want our tree to end. And then we can put our brick. I think I'm gonna have my brick wall go about here. Okay? And I'll put some tree trunks in later, but you can also outline those. So let's say there's a trunk. And I'll put some color in here in a bit. There's a trunk. And then maybe the tree kind of continues down. And sometimes you can just do like little texture layers, okay? And we're gonna do the same thing on the right-hand side. So again, you can decide right now where you want your tree line to be, tree edge to be, and just scribble it in.
The scribbling I can see being very intimidating.
It's funny. I think it can be for sure, but the beauty of it is it's not wrong.
Right.
Like you literally just have to trust yourself to the movements and let go. And just like when I was doing this project, it actually was tricky for me because I'm like, people are gonna hate how this is gonna look. Like I'm like, no way is this gonna turn into anything that people would want to paint. And but then when I just like trusted the process, and I'm like, I'm just gonna keep going. Let's just see what happens. And then at the end, I was just like, that actually looks awesome.
Seriously.
So those are our tree lines.
Look at those tree lines.
And now we're gonna put in our brick. So we have our brick building, and if you wanna like pay attention, like this is, you can see this is kind of more like stone built up.
Can you bring it down?
Yeah,
Thank you.
instead of like clean brick. But I felt like it would be hard to communicate that. So, and brick is like, people know what that is, you know?
Yep.
So let's just put in some lines and then scribble it. Now remember, they kind of like go every other, right?
Yep. The overlap.
Staggered.
Staggered. It's Hagrid's cousin.
But we still want some of that scribbly elements, what relates to these other things. If we were to go super clean, hard edges, I think it would feel a little disconnected from everything else. Not that that's bad, but that's why I kind of decided just to celebrate the scribble. And you do have a thick side of the pen too, so if you're really losing your lines and you need something a little bit thicker to help define them, you can utilize it. And then just kind of keep going as deep as you want. Know that as you get to the edge, it's okay to leave it kind of like unfinished. I feel like that, or it can even go past the wash, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, there's our tree.
That's awesome.
And our wall.
Look at that
Isn't
tree
it
line.
fun?
Yes.
Okay, let's mix a brown and put in our branches before I forget. So I'm gonna do red, blue, tangerine. If it's reading too red, if we have any green on our palette, we can put it back in there. Green is just the space blue and the tangerine mix, so you can also mix some more. And then kind of in these spaces, put in some branches. And you can try and go off reference photos here. Sometimes you can just be like, it feels like there should be a branch here. Not sure why. Okay.
Looks right.
Looks right. I can tell that I put the branches in when I did the wash because it bled a little bit with my green.
Mm.
And then if you haven't already outlined them, like I kind of already outlined this one over here, you can let that dry and then outline it. Okay, already this is looking great. Now we're gonna put in some shadows, and so I'm gonna look at areas where there are shadows. There's definitely some here, right underneath that roof edge and underneath this like building. So whenever there's like something popping out underneath, there will be a shadow. So just mix a darker value, and I'm gonna go for these guys right here. And the shadow looks to be about halfway through the angles. You see that?
Yeah.
So that's where the shadow goes. And it's just a line. Boop. Same thing down here. Boop. Okay, and then even on this part right here, this like gold creamy color, I'm gonna add some of that brown to that. Right along the top, just do a shadow line.
Crazy.
And then all of a sudden it just feels more three-dimensional.
Yeah.
And again, this is your painting, so you guys can control how much detail is going into this. But I wanted to keep it pretty basic. I'm seeing some spots where I just forgot to paint in. So I'm gonna put some of those in now. Even on like the window parts, right? Those are shadowed. You can put some in there too if you want. And sometimes if the shadow isn't convincing enough, you can do one more layer of dark. There we go.
Nice.
And this, I forgot to paint that in. If you want to paint over the windows, you can, or you can leave them blank, put in a different color. Again, whatever you want. Okay, then I'm gonna let this dry, and by that, I'm gonna use my heated craft tool. And we're just going to do our very last step, which is putting in, I'm gonna put in some detail lines on the building, just like roof lines, and maybe some building texture, and then we'll finish it off with some gold accents. But again, you wanna make sure your painting is dry. Okay, so this is where it's nice to be in person or have a photograph handy. And then I want to look at the direction of some of these lines. For example, along this roof, you can see that there are thin lines that kind of swoop down as if it's ridged. You might not be able to see that close up, but you'll have this photograph so you can see it from there. Along this edge, there's a bump, right, where those ridges kind of stick out. Here, let me do this. So we have that texture. We have this kind of wooden texture here that's going on. So I can just do like lines. So basically I'm just looking at details of line work that I can utilize. Like here we have some thin lines going down. So I'm like, okay, so on this roof, I'm gonna use the thin side. And let's add those in there. And then here, maybe they kind of go out that way. And I felt like I needed to kind of thicken up some of these lines here. Again, very sketchy, sketch-like. You can do hash marks in the shadows. Hash marks are when you do angles one way and then do it the opposite way.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, it communicates shadow and stuff in drawing, or at least a darker value.
I like that.
Like that. We can do thin lines on this roof if we want. Do little guys kind of sticking up here. And then on the building, so I can see I did hash marks on the shadow. I definitely did line works on the roof. Just play with different marks and textures. Okay, so there's this thing called NAMTA, National Art Materials, what is it?
National Art Materials Training Assembly.
That's not it.
No, it's not it.
But basically, that's where you go to look at for like new art supplies, make connections, all this stuff. And the first year that I went, my favorite part was I came across a sketchbook artist. I wish I can remember his name. But he showed me a trick to doing textures. So he was like the pro at doing different textures with pens. And one of the textures that he did and that he showed me, and I'm not sure if it'll work with this pen, but you take a marker, you rub it on your thumb, and you get this cool thumbprint texture.
Whoa.
Yeah, so, and if you look at his sketchbook, he has this texture on a lot of different places because look how cool that texture is. Can we see a close-up of it?
Let me get a close-up here.
Let me see if I can, is that paper? Gosh, can't see it very well.
That's neat.
So, basically, as an artist, some of the very, like, fun things that you get to do is how can I create a new texture line? How many different marks can I make? What supplies do I need to make those different marks? Or what can I use that I already have right here sitting in front of me while I'm trying to sketch this building that I can get a different texture line? You can use a cap smeared in paint. You can use the edge of your brush. You can use anything and everything. I felt like kind of doing a grid down here. Like this felt like such a thick open space that it needed something.
National Art Materials Trade.
National Art Material, thank you. I'm like, what is that?
Also, North American Montessori Teachers Association.
Montessori?
Yes.
I was in Montessori when I was younger.
Were you?
That's the only reason why I know how to say it.
Is it a band?
No, it's kind of like a educational preschool, if I'm remembering correctly.
Neat. More questions. Yeah.
I was in it, but I don't know what it is. So again, just doing little lines. And the fun thing about this is the more that you do, like the better it is. You know what I mean? This one, you can play with it and overwork it in a good way. You know what I mean? Like nothing wrong with overworking some sketches, you know?
I love sketch looks.
Isn't that fun?
Yes.
Okay. I feel pretty good about how this came out. Again, and I know that I've said this many a times, I know I repeat myself a lot. It's up to you. How much detail do you want in this project? How loose do you want this to feel? Do you want to challenge yourself where you can say, how little information can I give my viewer so it still feels like a three-dimensional building? Or you can do the opposite. How many different mark makings can I get in this one sketch? And make it a game. Play with it. That's how we learn. Okay, so very last step is just some gold accents. So I can look at the top here, kind of where these little statues are coming out. Maybe on the tip of buildings. And remember, this is acrylic, so it's just gonna go right on top of whatever we put out. I mean, it's just a little detail, but it's pretty fun.
It's nice.
Okay, that is our project.
Ooh.
Ooh. So my goal with this is, one, maybe you can now look at a photograph that you have that you wanted to recreate, and you might have a better idea of how to go about doing that. Know that there are royalty-free photograph sites that you can go to. This one is from Unsplash. That means very kind photographers allow you to make paintings of their photographs because you need permission to do that. So Unsplash is one of my favorite websites to go to for those. You can also use one of your own. Hopefully this also gets you interested in urban sketching or just sketchbook in general, ink and wash, how they can play together, how you can explore mark making and materials to make something that's your own. And I hope that throughout this entire month and this theme, you allowed yourself to play. You allowed yourself to look at your different paintings and your projects and your experiments and appreciate them for what they are. Find beauty in them. They don't have to be a frame-worthy, picture-perfect rendering of something to be valid or of value. And above all, I just wanted you to have fun with this box. And that's what this box was for me. It was just joy. So thank you. I hope you take this and run and play and experiment. If you need any of these supplies, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. Just a reminder, this is part of our Wabi Sabi box. If you're on Facebook, you can join our Facebook group that's called Let's Make Art Watercolor. Very supportive, kind, and large community of other artists. They're all different ranges of skill. So you have people that are beginner, and you have people that are pretty advanced, but it's all kind and supportive. So please go there, share your work, learn from each other, ask questions. It's a wonderful community. And if you're on Instagram, you can tag us at Let's Go Make Art or hashtag Let's Make Art and share your work. It's scary, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. Promise. So, Keenan, always
Sarah,
a pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next time. Bye.